the Alamo Drafthouse, the Cedars. I'm James Faust with the Dallas Film Society, and you guys are here to see The Meg.
Yeah!
Right? Yeah, okay. You guys are here to see Black Klansman, correct? Yeah! All right. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. I want to give a big shout out to the Alamo Drafthouse for doing things like this. If you're not a member, become a member. So have a round of applause for the Alamo Drafthouse. You guys do amazing things year-round. As I said before, I went to the Dallas Film Society. We put on the Dallas International Film Festival. Actually, the last time I stepped in this theater, we were showing Animal House, so this is completely different. Just letting you know, it's a lot different than that. There's less food fights in this one. So I'm really excited to get to see this movie with you guys and share the special guests we had. I first heard about this when it hit Cannes last year, and about 8 years ago, I had a great conversation with Spike Lee for an hour. And he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I'm sure he's one of your favorite filmmakers. If he's not one of your favorite filmmakers, then he should be one of your favorite filmmakers. If he's not one of your favorite filmmakers, he should be one of your favorite filmmakers. If you say it enough times, like the president, he can't stick. But I was excited about this film. The story just sounds fascinating, and I'm of an age that when I grew up, there's a certain part in Granbury, Texas, and Irving, Texas, that I would see the Klan on the corner every Saturday morning, and it was still the word, just saying the word just kind of bugs me. And so the fact that this exists, the fact that there's Black Klansman, the story that you're about to hear and see, it's just fascinating, it's brave, and it's powerful, and we are excited and very happy and lucky to have a couple of people that you're going to hear a lot from, Patsy and Ron Stallworth. Come on up here, Ron Stallworth, Black Klansman. We spent some time outside talking and earlier this evening, and so I'd love to get to the start of this. So hearing this story, 40 years ago, you did this 40 years ago, and we just got this book 4 years ago. So talk about how this process getting from that 40 years to now.
Well, first of all, the book I found out about 3 hours ago is now #1 on the New York Times bestseller. The process began in March of 2013. I sat down, put pen to paper, wrote 30 pages, didn't like it, tore it up, and started all over again. 9 months later, I had what ultimately became the original version of my book. That was given to two Jewish gentlemen, and I emphasize Jewish because that's integral to the story here about the city. Two Jewish gentlemen approached me about writing a screenplay. I agreed to let them write it with stipulation that I have final control over everything. They wrote it. After 4 revisions, I settled on the 5th one, told them they could go shop it around. They took it to QC Entertainment, one of the production companies. QC in turn took it to Jordan Peele. Jordan in turn took it to Spike, and here we are today.
So that's probably a little bit fast. So how were you involved in this? Because Ron was telling me you had a part in this early on.
We had began dating, and he started writing the book, and he lived in Utah, I lived in El Paso, so he would write a couple of pages and send them down to me, and we talk about them and discuss, and I'd give him opinions, and he would take some and he would not take some. So he loves to say that my eyes were the first ones to see the book. And it was surreal to see him take pen to paper and then to be here at the final product.
That's great. If you've seen the movie and you're back again, this is good. I like that. So here's the thing. So this is funny. The film itself, there's a lot of characters in it that we still know and that are in the news today, namely David Duke. Have you heard from him lately? Has he read the book?
Yes and yes. David Duke called me 3 weeks ago this past Sunday. Don't ask how he got the number, because I know how, but we had an hour chat while I was in New York. To sum it all up, he was very concerned about how he is portrayed in this film. And his concern was based on the trailers that you've all seen. He was concerned about that, and actually told me, it was funny when I heard his voice, it was like 40 years ago, we picked up where we left off. Except this time, it was like he picked up where he picked up where we picked up where we left off 40 years earlier. He told me he had read the book. He said he liked it. He respected me for telling the truth. He said that he was not a racist or a white supremacist. And I checked him on that. When I checked him on it, I pointed out that he was a supporter of a certain individual in the White House who would remain unmentioned, and that individual had chosen to ban Muslims from our country, had chosen to separate children from their families at the border where we live.
Boo!
And who booed me?
Not you. 45.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're with Brad, sorry.
Sorry about that.
And I pointed all that out to him, and he said all Trump was doing was promoting white heritage and white culture. I pointed out to him
That's not racist.
I pointed out to him there was no such thing as white heritage or white culture. That's right. He said, yes, that's not true. I pointed out that America had rich white slave-owning rapists as presidents. Thomas Jefferson. He said that was not true. That's never been proven. I said DNA has proved it. Every time I pointed something out to him, he pivoted to another topic. He didn't want to address the issue that I was talking about. We talked about all that. He told me he liked Spike Lee and respected Spike Lee. When I told Spike that, Spike said, "That's the kiss of death. I don't want that." So that was my initial conversation with David. He called me. He told me that I did tell him, by the way, that I knew he was recording me for use on his podcast, and he kind of nervously giggled and said, "Yeah." I said, "Just be sure and quote me correctly." Well, he called me about a day or two later to tell me that he had talked about our conversation on his podcast, and that he had recommended to his listeners that they buy my book and go see the movie. So if I'm #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, it's probably because white supremacists have
Thank you, white supremacists.
Good for something. I've met Spike a couple times. So talk about when you first met Spike Lee. How was that? How did that go? For both of you, actually, if you get a chance.
I'll let my wife tell this story.
You want the real?
Yes.
All right, here's the real story. Spike Lee invited us to go listen to the first read-through at his studio, 40 Acres and a Mule. So we're sitting pretty much at a round table with Spike Lee and Kevin Wilmot, his screenwriter, and Ron and I, and across from us are Topher Grace, John David Washington, and it was surreal. But before that, we walk into the studio, and I'm facing Spike's office, and Ronnie's got his back to it. So I see Spike coming out, and I tell him, oh my gosh, here comes Spike. And he turns around, and the first words out of his mouth were, "You a little guy, Spike." Oh my gosh, you didn't just say that. So Spike walks up to him and says, "Who are you?" "I'm Ron Stallworth." And Spike turns around and walks away. But later on, we went and said thank you to him and everything. And I think, in retrospect, Spike probably appreciated that, because Spike doesn't hold back. He says what he feels. So Ronnie's saying, "You a little guy?" Maybe it was a good thing.
He's a small guy. You mentioned some of the cast. The cast in this is amazing. So when you were envisioning this movie coming out, because I said earlier, like, man, Lawrence Fishburne could play you now. But 40 years ago, Ron, you had another person in mind.
Yeah, believe it or not, when I was first approached about who I wanted to play me, I said Denzel Washington.
He can do it all.
I said that because he's arguably our greatest actor, living actor, and he's my favorite. So imagine how I felt when this thing came full circle and I found out that his son was cast in the role of playing me. Wow. John David Washington. If you're not familiar with him, what you're about to see is the beginning of a superstar.
Wow.
And I told him that to his face. He doesn't feel like he's a star. He doesn't feel like he's a celebrity. He'll say, "No, I'm just John David." And it's not John, it's not David, it's not JD, it's John David. That's his first name. He will tell you, I'm just me. He's a very humble kid. He's very polite. He's very soft-spoken, very respectful. The kid is a wonderful human being, and his mom and dad did a hell of a job on him. He really did.
And he's single.
I had the privilege of telling them that a few weeks ago. But you're about to see a superstar in the making in John David Washington, and I couldn't be happier that he is portraying me in this film.
Did you sit with him a lot? Did you got to go over some of the character with him? Did you guys hang out, or you just go script?
We talked several times on the phone. We texted several times. John David, first of all, any of you who try to claim that you're seeing him mimic me or imitate me, you couldn't be more wrong. He made it very clear when we talked that I'm not going to try to imitate you. He said, because I can't. He said, what I'm going to try and do is channel the essence of you at the age of 25. He captured the 25-year-old me pretty well, but his mannerisms are not necessarily mine. For those of you who have read or seen stuff in the news about that I spoke in a white voice on the phone with Duke, and that John David is doing the same in the movie, he is not, and I did not. I spoke to David Duke on the phone 40 years ago exactly like I'm talking to you. When you work undercover, you don't try and disguise your basic personality or characteristics, because if you do try to disguise it, you have to maintain it at all times, or else your life could be put in danger. So you basically stick to whoever you are, persona-wise, all the way through. And that's what I did when I held my conversations with Duke, which you'll see portrayed on the screen. John David was acting as John David, pretending to be Ron Stallworth. He was not trying to mimic me. He was not trying to talk in a white voice. He was talking as John David.
So this is something that is benevolent for both of you. So you're writing a story, and there's something, the movie's a little different from the actual book. But one thing I was thinking about the entire time was, were you ever thinking, when you're reading this story out there, about your own safety, about what the Klan might say, because in essence what you did to David Duke, what you did to the Klan at that point, was that ever, in the forefront, or just thinking, I just have to get this out?
Screw the Ku Klux Klan.
There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was an experienced undercover investigator. We don't get scared. We do our job. And dealing with these guys back in 1978 was just another assignment for me. see in the movie. I saw an ad in the paper, and I ran with the ad, made contact, and the investigation ensued from that point on. It was just a job. It was an assignment. When this one finished, I moved on to something else. We don't worry about history like the Klan has or anything like that. You don't intimidate us. We do our job, and we do it as best we can to the extent that we can.
Patsy, did you get a chance to see, I don't know if he wrote the manuscript, but did you get a chance to see the script before it came out and make him go, hey, why don't you do this instead?
As he was writing the book.
Oh, no, actually, the screenplay.
When we went to meet Spike for the read-through, we were given a screenplay. And really, at that point, nobody has any say-so. This is Spike. We did ask Sean Reddick, the producer, Sean, how much input do you have into a movie, being the producer? And he said, normally we have a lot. But you gotta understand, this is Spike's world, and we just live in it.
So because there are some things that are different, and I really enjoy just getting the crux of the story still there, though. And I mean, I think I read an article from one of you. They were saying that you gave them creative license to do what they want as long as they kept the story, the crux there.
No, you don't give creative license. When you sign your option rights away for a movie, they basically own the right to tell that story. You don't have any say from that point on. To these guys' credit, they listened to me. They asked my opinion. They were very receptive to what I had to say. And I can honestly say that they made a movie that I can live with. But you don't dictate to them once you sign the option rights away, because they own your story, literally. And it's theirs to do with what they will. I think
Masterful.
Spike Lee, in my opinion, and I've said this to him on one of the daytime talk shows a few weeks ago. I said that, in my opinion, Spike Lee is a national treasure to the cultural arts of Black America. And not only that, he's a national treasure to the cultural arts of America in general for the body of work. He does not get the recognition that I feel is his just due. This movie might be the one that really puts him over the top, and I hope it is. I hope it is.
Would you be willing, we have time for 2 questions. If anybody has a question, please. Oh, I'm going to go with this man right here because he has dreads, and I'm going to go to you because you have a beard. So you first.
So as someone who has seen the film already, not to give any spoilers, but
Don't do that.
Your last words to David Duke in the film, is that an accurate quote?
That scene, I won't say anything else.
Your last one.
But it's a spoiler.
So,
I'll tell you what I will do is if you buy a book and come have me sign it, I'll break it all down to you.
You don't have a voice if you don't buy the book.
yeah, bearded, sir. Yes.
I've also already got to see the film, and I was curious. So the way it's depicted in the film, you didn't have a lot of exposure to the Black Power movement before you went undercover, and I wonder what, so I guess kind of 2 parts. One, is that relatively accurate or not? And then I guess I was really struck in the movie by how well it contrasts the white power and black power movements. I wonder if you could talk about having been pretty deep undercover in both of those movements, if you just comment a little bit on your perspective on the differences between the two.
There was no undercover on the Black Power movement. That's a myth that's floating around in the media too.
Okay.
You will see in this movie, there is a scene where I am in an undercover capacity. John David is playing me with Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, who was a high-ranking Black Panther official. My undercover experience with Kwame consisted of about an hour and a half at a bar where he gave a speech, and I was sent in to monitor that speech because my department was concerned about how the black community would respond to it. Gotta keep in mind, this was 1975, April of 75 when Stokely appeared. Not too far removed from when the cities in this country were, major cities were burning.
Right.
As a result of the civil rights movement. So they were concerned about some reaction from Stokely. And I went in, I monitored his speech, I gave a report, I went out. Next day I was back in uniform, and 4 months later I was in the detective division, the first black and the youngest in the history of the department. So there was no, contrary to something that's floating around in the media, there was no my being undercover in the Black Power movement. Okay? That was it. Was I familiar with the Black Power movement? I was a black man in America at that time. You know? And in terms of being conflicted, the only conflict that occurred, I was a cop. I had a job to do. And in doing that job, I'm listening to Stokely. Stokely's making perfectly good sense to me on some of his points. But yet I'm a cop. We're in an adversarial role in this setting. So I was agreeing with him on some points, but yet recognize that as a cop, I can't be agreeing with this man. You know? And in some cases, he was making such sense that while I was in the crowd, I started, right on, brother. It dawned on me. Cool the black power. You're not supposed to be reacting that way. You know? So, yeah, there was some conflict, but that conflict occurs with black officers in this country, all across this country. Always have, always will be. As I put in my book, by the book, as I put in my book, we are too black for the white community and too blue for the black community. The black community does not want to accept us because of our willingness to wear the uniform, the badge, the gun, and to enforce the laws of a system that they feel is oppressing them. They're wrong for feeling that way, but that's the reality that we have to live with, and I lived with it back then.
All right, so like he keeps saying, buy the book. You buy the book at the front counter, because after the movie, you'll be out there signing books that people have purchased, right? So you can go, because you're going to have questions and you want to talk afterwards, but you can definitely get the book and get more of the story. Before we get going with that, that's going to be after I'm at the box office desk over there. Is there something you want to say before we start the movie?
I'd like to say something.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
We have guests here. I want all of you to help me wish Susan and Kim Clow a very happy anniversary, 48 years. I want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you so much.
Enjoy the movie.
All right. Enjoy the film. Don't be afraid to laugh.
No.
Don't be afraid to laugh.
Don't be afraid to cry either.
Yeah.
One thing about the laughter, it actually happened. Feel free to laugh, because I was laughing at the time. I won't say anymore.
Thank you guys. Enjoy the film.